Advancing through the squat pattern, I'd like to look at lunges. I'm going to look at lunges in different directions. So I'm going to look at sagittal plane or forward lunges and backwards lunges. I'm going to look at the frontal plane, so diagonal lunges or lateral lunges. I'm going to look at a few variations in the transverse plane as well. So getting a bit of rotation through the hips and the knees and the ankles and the trunk as we look at some transverse plane lunges. So I'm going to start these from a back hold position or a back squat position with the bag on my back, and I'm going to take an anterior lunge or a forward lunge. Textbook lunge, as we know, is to flex the hip and flex the knee, take a pace forwards, land quietly through the heel and lower your back knee to the floor. And I say textbook lunge because this is a really good starting position. The plumb line of your body and the bag needs to drop down rather than forwards. If I'm looking to extend this in function, or I'm trying to get a little bit more bang for my buck with this, I'm trying to load up the back hip at the same time, I'm going to take rather deep step forwards so that I can open up my back hip and still drop the bag downwards and move backwards, back to the beginning along the path that I came out along. I'm going to equal this on both legs. Looking at a PowerBag lunge in the frontal plane, or a lateral lunge, sideways lunge, diagonal lunge, comes under many names. I'm going to take this from a back squat or back hold position. So I'm going to take a left side lunge or left sideways lunge, and this has two main areas to work. I have the leg that I'm lunging onto, so the strength and stability of that. Also the range of motion that my right hip and right leg will allow if my right foot stays flat to the floor. Now when you look at the leg that is moving, okay, I can either turn my foot out and land heel first so that the knee follows the toes, which is preferred for most lunges that we do. Okay, it's safe for the knee and it's safe for the foot and ankle. Okay, if you want to add a little bit more range of motion in this through function, I'm going to land with the foot as close as I can to the toes facing forwards, because what happens here is that my foot has to decelerate through the frontal plane, which means as my foot lands, my knee is still shooting off to the left. All right, so it has to decelerate through the frontal plane rotation, through the transverse plane, and decelerate before I get any injury. So it's a little bit more advanced, okay, to land with the feet facing forwards, but it's more functional for the joints of the foot, the knee, and the hip. Looking at a PowerBag lunge in a transverse plane, I'm going to do a curtsy lunge, reverse crossover lunge. I'm sure there are other names for it as well. but it's the one where you take one foot behind the other and lower your knee towards the floor and drive back up into a neutral starting or standing position. Now, the reason this is preferable to work a transverse plane is because there's a lot going on with this. As I take my right foot behind my left and place it on the floor, so if this was a clock face, I'd aim my right foot here to come around to about 7 on that clock face. And then I lower my back knee towards the floor. And if I just pause in this position, you see there's a lot of rotation going on, which, you know, by definition seems dangerous, but it's really not if you've assessed the range of motion for your knees, foot and ankle and hip. So with my foot flat on the floor, I've got a lot of eversion going on at the foot and ankle. Okay? With my foot staying flat on the floor, it's giving me a nice arch here as well. My knee has come into a rotated state and a tilted state, which if you can see that the lateral side of my knee has come closer together, which means this side, so it's adducted, and this side is abducted slightly, okay? All within a range that I'm used to working with, so there's nothing dangerous going on. And my hip, similarly, has rotated in at the femur. My pelvis has collapsed onto my femur, which has given me a really good deep stretch in my left glute area. And I've also rotated in towards it as well, as it's collapsed in a good way collapse. So it's adducted in and rotated inwards. And then I drive back up to my neutral or starting position. So I would try this with no weight to start with before you go and load it with something. But this is a golden nugget, so to speak, when it comes to moving in different directions under load. If you're a court player, a field player, cricket, basketball, tennis, anything that needs you to stop, turn, and accelerate in different directions, the curtsy lunge or the reverse crossover lunge with weight should be thrown into the mix for your training. I'm going to take it from a back hold or a back squat position, and I'm going to follow through with this lunge. Both feet flat on the floor, right foot goes behind the left at about 7 on a clock face, and I lower my back knee toward the floor, drive back up to the start. Try to maintain that forward facing position from my left foot, my base foot that isn't moving throughout this whole set. And then I swap legs.